The air in that conference room was thick, heavy with the kind of tension you could almost taste. I remember Chloe's lawyer, Vincent, with his practiced, gentle smile, sliding those thick divorce papers across the polished table. He told me to sign, but he didn't know. He couldn't have known. I was just pretending to read, my eyes scanning the page, my heart a silent drum against my ribs. Because the truth was, the papers I was pretending to read weren't the ones he thought. They were mine. And when Evelyn, my lawyer, in her quiet, steel-edged voice, asked him to read the terms aloud, his smile just vanished. It was gone, like a trick of the light, leaving behind only a stark, bewildering confusion. But I'm getting ahead of myself, aren't I? To truly understand that moment, that absolute silence that fell like a stone, we have to go back a few months. 2 months, to be exact. Back to a Saturday morning in April, to a discovery that shattered my entire world, yet ultimately set me free. For 8 years, I truly believed Chloe and I had the perfect marriage. A beautiful home in the quiet suburbs of Charlotte, a business I'd poured my soul into, finally turning a real profit. Chloe was everything I thought I wanted, smart, ambitious, truly stunning. We met at a corporate mixer, married 2 years later, and I honestly, profoundly believed we were solid. Unbreakable. Then, the last 6 months started feeling off. She began wearing this expensive perfume, Tom Ford Black Orchid, easily $200 a bottle, and I certainly hadn't bought it for her. She'd come home at 11 on weeknights, always with the same story, her book club ran late. And her phone, which for years had always just lain face up on the counter, was suddenly password protected. But I'm not the jealous type. I trusted her. I was the fool who really believed in us. The real red flag, the one that should have screamed at me, was her sudden, intense interest in my business. For 8 years, Chloe never once asked about revenue, clients, or contracts. Then, one Tuesday in March, she's sitting at the kitchen table, wanting me to explain our company structure. She grilled me about bank accounts, assets, property deeds, which accounts had both our names on them, the business valuation. She said she just wanted to be more involved, to understand my world better. She even suggested updating some paperwork to make things more official. I thought it was sweet. God, I was such an idiot. She also started keeping a journal, one of those fancy leather-bound ones. I'd see her writing in it constantly, at breakfast, before bed, sometimes even mid-conversation. When I asked what she was documenting, she just said it was for therapy, for processing feelings. Her therapist recommended it. Red flag number 97 that I completely, utterly missed. And then came the day. That Saturday morning in early April. I was searching for my gym bag and decided to borrow Chloe's. I unzipped the side pocket, and my fingers brushed against something hard, metallic. A phone. Not her sleek iPhone, but a cheap Android burner, tucked beneath a towel. My stomach just dropped. Nobody hides a second phone unless they're hiding something absolutely nuclear. I turned it on. No password. The text messages loaded instantly. I sank onto our bedroom floor, my world tilting, and I read. 3 months of conversation between my wife and her divorce attorney, Vincent Moretti. At first, they were professional, legal questions, asset consultations. But then they got personal. Then they became explicit. Detailed descriptions of hotel rooms, of things they'd done there, in the Grand Vista Hotel in downtown Raleigh, room 307. But that wasn't even the worst part. The worst part was the plan, laid out in excruciating detail. Chloe was meticulously building a case against me, fake abuse allegations, emotional manipulation, financial control. She'd been documenting false incidents in that journal for months, crafting a narrative where I was controlling, aggressive, financially abusive. None of it was true. Not a single word. But she was manufacturing evidence, complete with dates and fabricated details. Vincent was coaching her on what to say, how to act, which witnesses to prep. Her sister, Sarah, would testify I had anger issues. Her best friend, Jessica, would claim Chloe seemed scared. Her coworker, Michael, would even state Chloe came to work with bruises. All lies. All perfectly coordinated. They were planning to take everything. The house, the business, my retirement accounts. All of it. She'd get the primary assets, and I'd pay her $4,000 a month in support. Vincent had it all laid out, as if describing a football play. And then, in between their legal strategy, they'd send messages about meeting at the Grand Vista, about room 307, about how stupid I was, how easy this was going to be. I read every single message. It took almost 3 hours. By the end, my hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold the burner phone. I felt physically ill. This woman I'd loved for 8 years had spent months plotting to destroy me, all while sleeping next to me every night. I wanted to storm downstairs and confront her, scream, throw the phone. But something stopped me. Maybe instinct. I realized she'd been planning this for months. She had a strategy. She had a lawyer. She had witnesses lined up. If I reacted emotionally, I'd lose everything. So, I took screenshots of everything, every text, every photo, every detail of their vile plan. I uploaded it all to a secure cloud account Chloe knew nothing about. Then, I put the phone back exactly where I found it. That night, Chloe came home and kissed me like nothing was wrong. She made dinner, laughed at a sitcom, curled up next to me on the couch. I wanted to scream, but I just smiled, kissed her goodnight, and went to bed. Because if she could act, so could I. A Monday morning, I called a lawyer. Evelyn Hayes. The kind of lawyer you hire when winning isn't an option, it's a necessity. The kind other lawyers whisper about. I met her at her downtown Nashville office that afternoon, bringing printed copies of every single screenshot. Evelyn spent an hour reading, her face unreadable. Finally, she looked up at me. Her eyes were cold, calculating. She said one sentence, "We can flip this entire thing on them." Her plan was beautiful. We'd create our own divorce papers, almost identical to what Vincent was preparing. Same format, same legal language. You'd have to compare them side by side to spot the differences. Except the terms would be completely reversed. I'd get the house. I'd get the business. I'd get everything. Chloe would pay me support. And here was the genius part, buried deep in the document would be a full written confession. A paragraph where Chloe admitted to fabricating evidence, falsifying documents, committing fraud, and engaging in an affair with her attorney. All written in dense legal terminology that would look standard unless you read it very carefully. Evelyn explained that if we could get them to sign without reading it word for word, we'd have everything, signed, dated, legally binding. But it would only work if I played my part perfectly. For 2 months, I had to pretend I was falling apart. Act like the broken, defeated husband they expected. And that's exactly what I did. I stopped arguing, stopped asking questions. Started sleeping on the couch. Stopped initiating conversations. Let dishes pile up. Wore the same clothes 2 days in a row. Let my beard grow out. Chloe started smiling more. Humming while making coffee. Texting constantly, no longer bothering to hide it. She started looking at apartments online, leaving browser tabs open like she wanted me to see. Making calls to interior designers. She thought she'd already won. And honestly, watching her celebrate before it even happened made what came next so much sweeter. Last week, Vincent's office called. Scheduled the meeting. I walked into that conference room yesterday morning. Chloe looked triumphant. Vincent looked smug. They had no idea what was coming. The conference room was generic corporate, long table, uncomfortable chairs, windows overlooking the parking lot. Vincent sat at the head like he owned the place. Chloe next to him in a black dress I'd never seen. Probably bought it with our joint credit card for this victory moment. Evelyn sat beside me, her briefcase perfectly positioned. She looked bored, like this was just another Tuesday. Vincent started with fake sympathy, mumbling something about how difficult this must be, how we were all adults, how he hoped we could keep things civil. That practiced, gentle tone lawyers use. I nodded, playing my part, looking down at my hands like a defeated man. Chloe wouldn't make eye contact. She kept glancing at Vincent, little smiles, secret looks, inside jokes that made my skin crawl, knowing what they'd done while planning to destroy me. Vincent slid a thick stack of papers across the table. 40 pages. He'd organized everything with colored tabs, yellow for initial, pink for signature, blue for date. Real professional. He walked me through it like I was a child. Explained Chloe would retain the house, since she'd contributed to mortgage payments. The business would be split 60/40 in her favor, since she provided emotional support during the building years. Emotional support, I almost laughed out loud. He mentioned retirement accounts, investment portfolio, both cars, joint savings, everything divided to leave me with basically nothing, maybe 30%. Then the monthly support payments, $4,000 a month for 3 years to help Chloe maintain her lifestyle while she figured things out. $144,000 total, plus whatever I'd lose in assets. I watched him talk. This man had slept with my wife dozens of times while drafting documents to financially ruin me. When he finished, he pushed an expensive pen across the table. A Mont Blanc, probably $300. Evelyn didn't move. She let the silence stretch. Let it get uncomfortable. Let Vincent shift in his seat. Then she spoke for the first time, her voice professional, neutral. She said we'd be happy to proceed, but first, she had one small request. She asked Vincent if he wouldn't mind reading the complete terms aloud before we submitted anything, just to make certain everyone understood. For the record. Vincent's smile flickered. Confusion crossed his face. He looked at Chloe. She shrugged, clearly thought this was just a formality. They'd won. Why not humor it? Vincent picked up the papers, started reading, and I watched his face change in real time. Color drained. Eyes went wide. Hands started shaking. The papers rattled. Because these weren't his papers. These were ours. The first section was about the house. Primary residence located at 842 Meadowbrook Drive shall be retained in full by the husband with no claims from the wife. Chloe's head snapped up like she'd been slapped. She looked at Vincent, at the papers, at me. Mouth open, but no sound. Vincent kept reading, his voice getting quieter. Business assets, including Davidson Consulting LLC and all associated accounts, shall remain sole property of the husband. Vehicle ownership, including the 2022 Audi Q7 and 2021 Tesla Model S, shall transfer completely to the husband. Chloe grabbed the papers from his hands, started flipping frantically, fingers trembling, her face pure shock turning to raw panic. She kept saying, this was wrong. This wasn't right. What the hell was happening? Vincent was frozen, staring at the documents like they were in a foreign language. Then Evelyn spoke again, calm as ever. She mentioned there was one more section Vincent hadn't finished. Page 17, she said, the declaration statement. I suggest you review that part carefully. Vincent's hands were visibly shaking now. He turned to page 17. I watched his eyes scan, watched the exact moment he realized what he was looking at. He looked at me, truly looked at me, and I could see him understanding, he'd lost. He started reading, his voice barely a whisper. I, Chloe Davidson, do hereby acknowledge and confess that I have engaged in fraudulent activities, including fabrication of evidence, falsification of journal entries, perjury in sworn statements, conspiracy to commit fraud, and an extramarital affair with my legal representative, Vincent Moretti, and I accept full responsibility for these actions. Complete silence. You could hear the air conditioning, a phone ringing down the hall. Chloe's mouth was open. No sound, just heavy breathing. Vincent dropped the papers, his hands trembling, sweat on his forehead. Evelyn pulled a folder from her briefcase, laying out printed screenshots, text messages between Chloe and Vincent, their plan, sexual messages, hotel receipts, credit card statements. Everything organized with tabs and highlights. She explained these were copies, that originals had been filed with the State Bar Association 2 weeks ago, that an ethics investigation was opened, that Vincent's firm had been notified that morning, and that the district attorney's office had received a full package yesterday. Vincent stood up so fast his chair fell over. He started yelling, his voice cracking, saying this was entrapment, the documents were invalid, he never agreed to this, his firm would destroy us. Evelyn didn't blink, didn't raise her voice. She calmly pointed out he'd read the terms aloud of his own free will, that Chloe had reviewed the documents, that both had had ample opportunity to object, that no one forced anything. And then she noted the recording device on the table, which had captured everything. Completely legal in our state, one-party consent. Chloe turned on Vincent like a viper. She started screaming that this was his fault, that he promised this would work, that he said it was foolproof, that he was the expert, that she trusted him, that he'd ruined everything. Vincent screamed back, said she wanted to fake abuse allegations, that she initiated the affair, that she came to him, that this was her idea, that he was just helping a client. They went at each other like animals. All that partnership dissolved in 30 seconds. All the planning and secret smiles gone. Just two people trying to save themselves by destroying each other. Evelyn let them fight. Let them scream. Let them confess to everything while the recorder captured it all. Security eventually came. 2 guys in uniform asking if they needed to call police. Vincent was pacing, pulling at his hair, loosening his tie. Chloe was crying, mascara running down her face in black streams. She kept trying to talk to me, reaching across the table, saying we could fix this, she made a mistake, she never meant for this to happen, she still loved me, we could go to counseling. I didn't say a word. Just packed up my documents, followed Evelyn out, and left them there to deal with the consequences. In the parking lot, Evelyn turned to me. Her professional mask dropped for a second. She almost smiled. She said the next few months would be intense, that Chloe would try to make a deal with prosecutors, that Vincent's career was over, and that I should prepare for them to come after me any way they could. But she also said I'd won completely. That this was one of the most satisfying cases she'd handled in 20 years. We got in our separate cars. I sat there for a minute, engine running, hands on the wheel. For 2 months, I'd been pretending to fall apart, playing the victim, acting defeated. And now it was over. I'd watched 2 people destroy themselves. Watched their scheme collapse in real time. Watched them turn on each other the second things went wrong. I drove to the apartment I'd rented 3 weeks earlier, the place Evelyn suggested I secure, a 1-bedroom downtown Nashville spot. I walked inside, closed the door, sat on the couch, and for the first time in 2 months, I smiled. Because they'd had me. They'd almost won. Until they didn't. The fallout started slowly, then accelerated like a landslide. Evelyn called 2 weeks after the meeting. Vincent's law firm had terminated him. Partnership dissolved. His name scraped off the letterhead. They issued a public statement about maintaining integrity and zero tolerance for ethical violations. The legal community is small. Within days, every lawyer in town knew what Vincent had done. The State Bar Association suspended his license immediately. Evelyn explained that with our evidence, Vincent was looking at permanent disbarment. His entire career, gone. 23 years of law school and climbing the ranks, destroyed in one meeting. He'd never practice law again. Chloe's situation was worse. Turns out, fabricating evidence and planning perjury are actual crimes. Felonies with jail time. The district attorney, Rachel Chin, got involved 3 weeks later. They filed formal charges 2 months after that, 3 counts, fraud in the first degree, conspiracy to commit fraud, attempted perjury. Chloe hired a criminal defense attorney, Arthur Vance. Cost $75,000 for the retainer. Her parents took out a second mortgage to pay for it. He reached out to Evelyn, trying to negotiate. But here's the thing about consequences, you can't undo them once they're in motion. Rachel Chen was the prosecutor. Evelyn knew her. Said she was tough, didn't like people who abused the legal system. Rachel was pushing hard because this wasn't just a messy divorce. This was calculated, premeditated, documented in months of text messages. The prosecutor offered Chloe a deal 4 months after charges were filed: plead guilty to reduce charges, accept probation, pay full restitution, agree to a permanent criminal record. The alternative was a public trial, where every text would be read aloud, where Vincent would likely testify against her, where her parents and friends would hear exactly what she'd planned, where local news might cover it. She took the deal, signed it on a Thursday morning. Evelyn said Chloe looked like she'd aged 10 years. 3 years probation with strict conditions, $75,000 in restitution paid to me in installments, $3,500 monthly support payments for 2 years, community service, mandatory counseling, and the criminal record was permanent. That destroyed her professionally. Chloe worked in corporate HR, background checks are standard. She got fired 3 weeks after the guilty plea. Her company cited ethical violations and breach of trust. How can you work in human resources with a fraud conviction? She applied to 17 firms. All rejected her. Nobody wants an HR manager with a criminal record for fraud and perjury. Her parents remortgaged their house to cover legal fees and help with restitution. Her dad stopped speaking to her for months. Her mom cried through the plea hearing. Their retirement destroyed. Chloe moved back in with them. 34 years old, no job, no husband, no apartment, no reputation. Living in her childhood bedroom. The social fallout was brutal. Our friend group fractured. Most people sided with me once they saw the evidence. Some wanted nothing to do with the drama and just disappeared. Nobody wanted to be associated with that betrayal. Her best friend, Jessica, blocked her number. Posted on Facebook about how she couldn't associate with someone who'd fabricate abuse allegations, said it made real victims look bad, that Chloe crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. Her book club uninvited her. Her gym friends stopped responding. Even her sister, Sarah, barely spoke to her. Chloe ended up at a call center. Customer service for an insurance company. $9 an hour, 40 hours a week, getting yelled at by angry customers. It was all she could find with her record. My business actually grew after everything settled. Turns out when you're not being sabotaged, things run smoother. I landed 3 major contracts within 4 months. Hired 2 new employees. Started working with a business consultant. Revenue increased 40%. I sold the house 6 months after the divorce was finalized. Couldn't live there anymore. Too many memories. Too many nights wondering if she was texting Vincent. I bought a modern apartment downtown. 15th floor, floor-to-ceiling windows, a view of the city. Completely different energy. New furniture, new everything. Therapy helped more than I expected. Evelyn recommended someone, Dr. Lena Rodriguez, a psychologist specializing in betrayal trauma. I didn't think I needed it at first. Thought I was handling everything fine. But 2 months later, I had a panic attack in a supermarket in Charlotte. Completely fell apart in the cereal aisle. Couldn't breathe. Thought I was having a heart attack. Dr. Rodriguez explained that adrenaline had carried me through the crisis. Now that the danger was over, my brain was finally processing what actually happened. The betrayal, the manipulation, the months of lies, the fact that someone I loved had tried to destroy me while kissing me goodnight. We worked through it over 6 months of weekly sessions. Talked about trust, about recognizing red flags, about how to eventually date again without suspecting everyone. It took 8 months before I felt normal, before I could think about Chloe without my chest tightening, before I could trust my own judgment again. About 14 months after everything collapsed, I ran into Vincent. Complete accident. Coffee shop downtown Nashville on a Saturday morning. He was 3 people ahead in line. Didn't notice me at first. He'd lost significant weight. Looked older. Wore jeans and a wrinkled shirt instead of his usual tailored suits. His hair was longer, hadn't been cut in months. He saw me when he turned with his coffee, went visibly pale, tried to leave without eye contact, but the line was packed. He couldn't get out without walking past me. We made eye contact. He opened his mouth, closed it, said nothing. What could he say? I didn't speak either. Just watched him shuffle past, shoulders hunched, defeated, broken. Exactly what he'd planned for me. I ordered my coffee, sat by the window, watched him walk to a beat-up Honda Civic. Faded paint, dent in the bumper. Same guy who used to drive a BMW 7 Series, who vacationed in Cancun twice a year, who bragged about his corner office and billable hours. Now he looked like someone barely holding on, probably doing document review from home, contract work, anything to pay the bills. And I felt nothing. No anger, no satisfaction. Just nothing. He was a stranger who tried to harm me and failed. Evelyn called last month with an update. Chloe filed a motion requesting modification to her support payments. She was struggling to make the monthly $3,500. That call center job barely covered her car payment. Still living with her parents. Still unable to find anything in her field. Her lawyer argued hardship. Said she was genuinely trying to rebuild. That the payments were preventing her from moving forward. The judge denied the request. Said she'd agreed to the terms. That she'd signed a binding agreement. That the consequences of fraud don't get reduced because they're inconvenient. That maybe she should have considered financial hardship before committing crimes. I could have agreed to lower payments. Could have shown mercy. But I didn't. Because mercy is for people who make mistakes. Chloe didn't make a mistake. She made hundreds of choices over 6 months. Every text to Vincent, every fake journal entry, every lie, every hotel room, every witness she tried to coach, those were choices. Deliberate decisions. And choices have consequences. My life now is genuinely better than it was. Better than if I'd stayed blind to what she was doing. I run my business. See Dr. Rodriguez every other week. Hit the gym 4 times a week. Travel more, took a trip to the Arizona desert last month. I date casually. Nothing serious yet. Not ready, but I'm getting there. Learning to trust again, slowly. Sometimes people ask if I regret how it went down. Friends, my brother, even Dr. Rodriguez asked once if I wish I'd handled it differently, if maybe I'd been too harsh, if I could have just divorced her normally without destroying her life. And I tell them the truth. They had me. They had everything planned. Timeline, strategy, witnesses, false allegations. They were going to take my house, my business, my reputation, my future. They were going to bankrupt me. They were going to make me the villain in a story they fabricated. They were going to send me to court defending myself against fake abuse allegations. They were going to win. Until they didn't. And honestly, I sleep just fine knowing that. What do you think? Was there anything else I could have done?